We hear every day these reports over a growing nuclear threat out of Iran and North Korea. Now, critics are blasting a possible White House plan that would drastically cut our nuclear stockpile, calling that move naive and dangerous. Jim Walsh is an international security expert. He's with MIT Security Studies with us today out of Boston. Good morning to you, Jim, and welcome back to our program. Is this going to be a dramatic shift in our policy?
I do think it is a shift in our policy, but you got to remember that our current military force structure and the current doctrine is aimed at dealing with the Soviet Union. And the Soviet Union died about 20 years ago. And while the U.S. government, I know, is not the most nimble organization in the world, it has been 20 years. So I think we need to reorient what we've got right now to deal with the threats we face today, which are threats of proliferation.
Like Iran and North Korea is on the table now. I understand the argument you're making about the former Soviet Union, but are the critics right? Is it naive and potentially dangerous?
No, I think two things. First of all, there's a pretty widespread bipartisan consensus. Henry Kissinger, George Shultz, others who have said the danger is that a terrorist would get a nuclear weapon and use it against the U.S. And this is a different sort of danger than we faced in the past. The more nuclear weapons there are, the greater the chance a terrorist is going to get one. So it's in our national security interest to try to get that down as far as we can and still protect ourselves. On Iran and North Korea, we need the help of the rest of our allies. We need the Japans and the South Koreas and other countries to help us try to deal with Iran and North Korea, and they are more likely to help us if they think we're doing our part. If we say, you can't have nuclear weapons, country X, but we're going to continue to build lots of them ourselves, that doesn't play so well, and we don't get the support we need to try to contain and wrangle in Iran and North Korea.
So you're a buyer of that diplomatic talk, then? I mean, you believe that if we show an example to others in the world that they'll follow suit. Is that practical? Does that really happen in the real world?
Yeah, I don't think it's about setting an example that we do something and others follow us. I think it's plain old politics. And we have a record here of the last 10 years that countries are increasingly reluctant to go along with U.S. leadership. And when we show that we're doing our part in following our treaty obligations, then it's easier for us to get people to help us do the job.
But
I think that's just plain old politics.
And North Korea, listen, you know this issue better than anyone. When we talk about Iran and North Korea, it's not the Japanese or the South Koreans who have not been there to help, or the French or the Germans or the Brits. It's been the Russians and the Chinese. They're the big players.
Absolutely. Yeah, and the Europeans. But yes, I agree with you that the countries that are holding this up are the action on sanctions, for example, have been the Chinese and the Russians. But the Russians have started to come over, and we're about to sign an arms control agreement with Russia. So there's some progress there. But the point is, if we have thousands and thousands and thousands of nuclear weapons, which we have had, is that going to stop Iran from getting a nuclear weapon? I think these are unrelated things. Even if we change U.S. nuclear policy, which I think helps us politically, there's no way Iran's going to attack the U.S. with a nuclear weapon. It doesn't have a nuclear weapon, but if it had one, it's not going to attack us. We still have, between the U.S. and Russia, that's almost 20,000 nuclear weapons. I can't imagine in our lifetime that we're going to be in a situation we're going to be using even one of them, let alone the 20,000
Sounds like we're having this conversation in 1980 all over again. Now, listen.
Exactly.
Robert Gates, Secretary of Defense, delivered his proposal to the White House, I think it was yesterday on Monday. What's likely to come out of this, Jim? Your best guess is what on policy?
Yeah, I think we're going to split the difference here. We're going to see some change. We're going to see no more nuclear weapons. We're not going to pour money down that rat hole anymore. We're not going to see new missions, but we're not going to go as far as the folks on the other side want us, the critics on the left want us to go. We're still going to maintain a nuclear umbrella. We're still going to use nuclear weapons for purposes other than deterrence. We're going to keep our commitments to Japan and North Korea. So I think they're going to try to strike something in the middle.
Okay, we'll see what comes of this then. Jim Walsh, thank you. Great guest out of Boston. We wait to hear and find out. Thank you, Jim.
You.
All right, Martha.
Well, it is the war.